Hi, and welcome to this new video where I want to start a series of small video about GitHub Copilot and some suggestion for everyday usage. And in this first video, I want you to focus on the long file in edit mode. The problem is if you have long files and you go into edit mode, so you're asking to your Copilot to edit your file, the problem is when Copilot decide what it need to modify to your file, it will regenerate the whole file. So it uses a lot of output token. And even if the new models accept a very long input context, so we can send a lot of data to the large language model and it is capable of analyzing pretty quick, output tokens are costly. They are limited. And so if you have a very long file, it is better to use different technique. Let's see an example. So it is normal for me having a long file when it comes to unit test. In this project, we have almost 20,000 unit tests, and we tend to group into long files because so the compiler has no thousands of files. And if I want to add a new unit test into this long test file, and if I have a very small functionality, usually I'm going in edit mode and ask Copilot to edit my files. Copilot is good because it allows me to insert into the context of this request all the file needed for the edit. So I'm including the test file and a couple of files that contains the property, the new feature that I want to test. I'm in edit mode, that's important. So be prepared to check edit mode. And I'm using GPT 4.1. And now I'm asking a simple prompt to have a new test to be generated. Now I've prepared a prompt, okay? And I'm not interested in this demo of the correctness of the result, but I'm interested in one fact. If I send the prompt to GitHub, it starts working, and at a certain point, it will generate the modification. So it's tell me that I'm start editing. And so you can see that there is a cursor that scroll down up to the end of the file. So what happens is that Copilot regenerate the whole file, and since the file is really long, it can take times. Now, I've used a slightly different prompt, but the important thing is I'm in ask mode. So Copilot is not able to modify my file. So the difference is that now Copilot, instead of regenerating the whole test file to make an edit to my file, it will hopefully tell me only the code for the new test to be inserted to the class. Let's see. I'm pressing send, and it still uses the very same reference. So actually, it is quickly generating me the code and the test that I need to add into my file. And also, it generates, these are the method which I need to include in my class. And these are a bunch of tests that I need to copy into the test file. So actually now I need to add this information to the file, but it's simple because the test file is usually big. I can choose an insertion point where I want to set the test, and I can press this button that can allow me to directly insert the custom cursor. Okay, I just need to remove the existing code and okay. And the difference in this approach is in this situation, I usually have less output token. And so the generation of the answer is usually faster. If you use a quick model like GPT 4.1, that is a model really quick, you can not notice the difference. But if you're working with models that have more capabilities, and usually they are slower in generating output token, you will notice a difference in time. In execution time. Also, if you simply use the ask mode, the answer contains all the instruction you need to follow to insert this into files. So if I have a file like OmniSearch item that is a very maybe smaller file, this is a long file, but that's an example. Maybe the class file is smaller. You can press this other button that simply apply the modification to the correct item. So as you see, it's still going to, you see a cursor, it is going to regenerate the whole file to understand where to insert the code. So the problem is whenever you are asking for direct modification of your file, usually GitHub will regenerate the entire file. And if the file is long, it can be slower. So if you know this, that in your everyday work, maybe with a model that is slower, maybe it's a bigger model but slower, you can find useful use the ask mode, letting Copilot generate only the pieces of code you need to insert into your classes and then manually insert. It's not a big work, and also it will allow you to fine tune and fine control what you are inserting into your class. Instead of letting Copilot modify a bunch of file and then hope that everything is correct, you ask for modification. You can look at the code that you are inserting into your class. So you are making a review of generated code. Usually it is a better approach. Now let's try with a bigger model. I'm using the Gemini 2.5 Pro and I'm asking the very same prompt, the very same 3 file, but now the model, it's a model that is much more capable and usually is slower. So it starts understanding what I have told him to do and it starts generating code. So you see the cursor is going down, but now it's lower than GPT 4.1 because actually it is regenerating the whole file. And so you see it needs a lot of times. And also if the file is really, really long, it can hit the limit of output token generation. So you see it's much more slower. Now I want to run the very same prompt, but now in ask mode to verify if it's indeed quicker. So I'm pressing the send button and I don't want to run with workspace. So I say run without. So it used the very same 3 reference files as before. It tried to understand what I've asked to the model. The model usually is slower in starting generating token because it's a bigger model and hopefully it can handle more complex tasks. And after this, it starts generating the code. And since now it only need to generate the differential code, what I need to add, hopefully it will generate code faster because now it does not need to regenerate the entire file. So now it is generated only the test that I need to include, and then I can simply add them to the result. So usually if you need to modify test file or file where you know that you have a very big file with a lot of example like unit testing, and having a big file is good because you have a lot of already written tests that explain to the model how you want to write the test. It is usually quicker to use the ask mode, so the model can simply output the new piece of the code you need to insert, and then you can press insert at cursor, and usually it is faster. So in the end, even if you have long files, instead of separating into smaller file, and it can be done if it will make your code more readable, but especially for test files that are usually longer, I don't care if the file is long, and I don't care if passing to GitHub Copilot, I make a longer context, because modern model can handle longer context quite well. But instead of going into edit mode, I always start first with ask mode because the model need to generate less token, and usually I have only a bunch of new tests or a bunch of new tests and a bunch of new code to be added to a couple of files, so I can select where I want to include the code, press add to cursor position, and so my editing session, it usually be quicker. And this is especially more true if you are interacting with a larger model that needs more time generating tokens. So it's better to use the ask mode to make it focus only on the question and output you only the relevant increment of code. Also, as I told you before, if you concentrate, if you give a look at the new code that the large language model generates for you, you can immediately understand if the code is quite good or maybe it is a fruit of complete hallucination. And it is, for me, a better experience. And you left the edit mode when you are modifying a lot of files together, so you let the Copilot do this for you. But usually you carefully need to rewrite and review what was inserted to avoid inserting bug or to avoid inserting unwanted code. Because remember, Copilot is really good in generating a very good code, but the model can always hallucinate. So a check is necessary.